Hey everybody, thanks for watching. Don't forget to click the subscribe button and the bell icon so you get notified of each new video as they come out. Okay guys, my name is JJ Johnson. You're watching Reality Survival, and today is going to be another one in the Prepper Trifecta series. We are doing a review of the original Red Dawn, which, and I say we, that is Che over at Prepper Logic and Eric over at the Lord Humongous. And so we're all basically going through, we're watching the movie, and we're going to take notes and just share those notes with you guys. That's kind of what it was. I have 27 points that I wanted to talk about, and I'll try to throw in some clips in here as we're watching this, if I can figure out how to get that put in and inset and all that kind of stuff. So Red Dawn is a movie. Awesome movie. I tend to put forth the proposition that Red Dawn may possibly be responsible for the modern prepper movement. You know, I could be wrong. I could definitely be wrong, but I think it's a huge contributor to the modern prepper movement, and especially to those folks who subscribe to the bug out philosophy. So it's interesting. It's a really interesting movie. And I guess we'll just go ahead and get started here. So the premise of the movie states, this is number one, the premise of the movie states that the reason for the invasion was a series of cascading political events combined with record low wheat harvest. And I've personally stated this for years, and I don't know if I got this because I watched this as a kid, or if it just because it makes sense, is that a serious drought or famine in targeted countries and specific countries is one of the most likely causes for foreign invasion, because America is the leading producer of grains and agricultural products, and some of these other countries just don't have a lot of farmland, and if they're left with no options, or the farmland, if it's in famine or in drought or whatever the case may be, millions of their people are dying. That could be part of a catalyst for a foreign invasion. So I thought that was fairly realistic in that point. Anyway, number 2 here is that before I get too far, we're gonna come together in a prepper trifecta chat. That'll be next Sunday, and let me see if I can pull up the date on when that is. 3rd of February. No, 3rd of March. Sorry. I believe that's right. Yeah, the 3rd of March. It should be 6 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. And so that'll be on Eric's channel, the Lord Humongous's channel. Okay. So number 2 here, this note, and this is kind of the funny one, but there would have, it's not really funny, it's kind of sad actually, there would have to have been massive failures across multiple different sectors of the government, and especially the military, for a foreign invasion to happen en masse like this did. I mean, Humint would have failed, Sigint would have failed, etc., etc. Literally thousands of people would have had to have been asleep at the wheel all at once for this to happen. So it's extraordinarily unlikely that it could happen without notice, especially in today's day and age. It's very unlikely. Maybe in a situation after an EMP, something like that, where there was mass, and I think that's kind of what the newer one referenced in some sort of way. But without that happening, this would be just about impossible. But without us knowing about it ahead of time. Okay, so that kind of sets everything up. Number 3, and I'll see if I can throw in a clip on this. Opening fire on the students and teachers. I don't really think that's a great strategy for an invading force. Ideally, they would take up positions to occupy and control the infrastructure first, and then move to tighten control. And also, RPGs are not firebombs, and the way that they blow up in the movie is not how they blow up in real life. Okay, so that's that. So number 4, I thought this was the first good decision that they made. And I'll, again, throw in a clip here. Getting out of Dodge as soon as possible. That was a great decision, and it was a realistic one. Being caught in town would suck, and it would limit your options severely. So if an invading force had come in and they had parachuted in just like that had happened, you absolutely want to try to get outside of their perimeter as soon as possible before they establish that perimeter. Okay? That is one reason why I tell people, look, I'm primarily a bug-in guy, but I recognize there are reasons and situations that could happen that could make bugging out the first thing you want to do. Okay? And this is one of those things. You would absolutely want to, if an invading army, came and took control of a certain area, then you absolutely want to get outside of their area of control so that you would be able to operate freely and on your own, as these kids did. So I thought that was a pretty cool point, and hopefully a learning point for people who say, I'm bugging in. I ain't ever leaving. I ain't doing it. I'll die in my house. Well, okay. You will. You will die in your house in a situation like this, and that's what would happen. Or you'll be rounded up and taken to their re-education camp or whatever the case may be. Survival is not just about being rigid and inflexible. It's about being adaptable and being able to operate and exist in multiple environments. And that's why there's such an overlap with wilderness survival and bushcraft and all this kinds of stuff, because it gives the prepper the most options possible. And they may not be the preferred options, but they're still options that can be exercised. Okay. So that was number 4. Number 5 is the supply acquisition at the relative's gas station / survival store. That was a great decision. stopping at the place on the edge of town that had a bunch of sporting goods stuff and all that kind of thing, and grabbing some Twinkies and whatever, and the box of arrows that they grabbed and all that kind of stuff, and that was all good stuff. That's a great thing to do. Now, chances of you knowing somebody who owns a store like that's pretty small. Maybe you do. So then you have a moral dilemma of, are you going to rob this place and then go? I mean, that's a personal decision. All right. But anyway, yeah, getting acquisition and loading the truck up full of stuff to head out into the hills was smart. In their situation at least. Okay, number 6. I really think that the uncle and who is the shopkeeper probably should have gone with them, but I understand that he probably needed to go back and get his wife and everything, so that's probably why he didn't. But it would have been better, I think, if he had gone with them. It would have been smarter in all reality. But okay, number 7. This one's one I had a video that talked about avoiding roadblocks and how to deal with them, how to negotiate them, and all that kind of stuff. And they did do this right. They didn't approach the roadblock. They stopped way back and then cut through the field and took off or whatever. Luckily, there just happened to be the rescue force that came and saved them right at that time frame. Good movie stuff right there. Not real realistic, but hey, it's a movie. But the point there is, and you guys should watch that video that I did on dealing with roadblocks. But pulling right up onto a roadblock is always a really bad idea. You just don't want to do that if you can avoid it, because it's a recipe for you getting screwed. So trying to stay back is a good thing. All right. So number 8, this was an interesting point in the movie, and I thought it was good writing just for them to include this. It was when Colonel Bella told the subordinate to go to the sporting goods stores to collect all the 4473s so that they could target the gun owners. Interesting point. I thought that was really great and good for them to throw in there, and not at all outside the realm of possibility. Because people who've studied our system, they know that is the one place where records are kept. Firearms dealers have hard copy records of who has purchased weapons at their store, their location, or transferred weapons to their store or the location. So that's an interesting point. Also, might be a counterpoint, maybe, I don't know, for folks to think about as far as destroying records prior to a foreign invasion. If you had advanced notice that there was going to be a foreign invasion, maybe you want to make sure those records aren't there. Just something to think about. Okay. So number 9, this is the struggle for control and interpersonal struggles is a very real issue. When they got to the camp, the one boy, I forget what his name is, tried to challenge Jed for leadership and all that kind of stuff. That's real. That is stuff that will happen in groups, especially groups that are just thrown together. And I'm actually going to do a video that talks about group dynamics and all that kind of thing. And so keep a lookout for that video. It'll be out before too long, because interpersonal struggles within a group are normal and they are predictable. And if you know them, you can work through those stages a little bit more effectively. But so I just thought that was a pretty cool point. Okay, number 10. Right around the same time in that movie, because I think Jed pushed the guy back through the fire and everything. If you just bugged out, having a fire in combat, because that's what you're in, right? Foreign invasion, you're in a combat situation now. Having a fire is a bad idea. If it's just really cold and you really have to have a fire because you've got to cook and all that kind of stuff, you want to use a Dakota hole fire. I've done a video on this in the past. It's way past, several years back. But that's going to help you reduce your light and smoke signature, and keep you from getting busted quite so easily. Burning a fire on the side of a mountain, you can see the smoke for miles. So that's a horrible idea. Number 11 is when they were hunting. I thought this was when they were hunting and they were using pine branches to break up their outline. And while it wasn't really executed great in the movie, it is actually a good practice, especially if you don't have camouflage clothing and things like that. And I will say that in that scene, drinking raw blood, while it is edible and you can do it, it's not really advisable because potential bacteria and viruses and different things like that. So you really should always make sure to cook your food before eating it or drinking it. Okay, number 12. This was another point that I thought was really very interesting and probably a very real thing that people would have to deal with, and that is the curiosity that set in about 30 days or so. It's a real deal, and it could drive dangerous decisions, and it did in their case. Going into town, not knowing if they had assigned ID documents or checkpoints or whatever the case may be, was super risky. Now, stashing the guns before they went in was smart, but the whole doing that was risky. That was a very risky thing, and it was really only because they didn't have great control over the town that they were able to get away with it in the movie. Number 13. So the re-education camps is probably at least one of the foundational reasons for all the FEMA camp fears. Unlikely. It is unlikely that you could just walk up to the perimeter and talk to those who are inside. That's probably not going to happen. If it does, they're the worst. They're the worst jailers ever. Because people could just hand them stuff, shivs, guns. Well, whatever. That's just. Anyway, it's not going to happen. But I think it is probably one of the earliest references to these re-education camps or whatever. I know people draw on World War II and other things too, but in the modern time frame, I think that's where a lot of this stuff comes from. Replace the Russian government with the United States government, and there you go. Whatever. All right. Number 14. This is when they went into the uncle's house, and they were going to meet him, and then they gave Jennifer Grey and Ali Sheedy, I think it is, to the group to take with them into the mountains. And as far as we could tell, and at least they didn't show it, they didn't leave a guard outside to keep watch. And so, if you are going to go into a house or something along those lines, I would recommend making sure to leave at least one person outside to keep watch. Ugh. Number 15, Jed kills the guy face to face. I can't remember what his name is. He was the traitor, basically. And this is something that you really would have to be ready for. And the consequences and psychological aftermath of doing that. That's a hard thing to do, to execute somebody. Or was it? Maybe it was his brother that actually did it. Maybe it wasn't Jed. I can't remember. I'll throw the clip in. All right. So, yeah, but just the whole psychological aftermath of doing that is, that's something that you're going to have to think about and to deal with and all that kind of stuff, because it's a possibility that you could have to deal with traitors, because what is your options? You could kill them. You could let them go. The obvious problem with that is that you have to trust that they're not going to come back and lead people to your location. So if you do let them go, you really need to make sure you move camp right away, because he's already shown himself to be a traitor. And do so, move the camp in a pretty dramatic fashion, a considerable distance, and take multiple trails and, all that kind of thing so that they won't be able to find your new camp again. Or your other option is you can hold him prisoner. And that sucks because then you're feeding him, So you really are kind of limited in the potential options that you have. So thinking about them is smart. Number 16, the mass killing was an interesting catalyst and pivot point that turned the fugitives to resistance fighters. This is also a very real thing and a very real consequence of heavy-handed use and force, for an occupying group. Especially, and even in martial law or foreign invasion or whatever the case may be. Anytime you have an occupying force that's holding, a populace basically against their will, there is a fine line that has to be walked between maintaining control and showing an even hand and dealing with people in a rational way. Because just like was pointed out in this video, when you're too heavy-handed and when you come down too hard on people, you will create a resistance. That will happen for sure. It has time and time again, the world over, and that's one of the reasons that when we talk about FEMA camps and other videos that I've done, I'm like, the government can't just come in and use tanks and bomb airplanes and UAVs and blow the shit out of stuff all over the place. They can't do that in martial law because that's creating an insurgency that didn't exist beforehand. It's guaranteeing they're going to have a hard fight. That's not what they do. That's not what they can do. It's not a realistic option. But I thought it was a great point in the movie to get back to this because it is the consequences of being heavy-handed that way. So I thought that was an interesting point. Number 17, getting down, we got the last 10 here. There was a small point of dialogue between Colonel Bella and the Russian general about troop morale. And this was an important conversation. Because here's the thing, and this is why militaries don't want to be too heavy-handed in an occupying situation. Fighting insurgencies is terribly difficult and is devastating on the enemy's morale. And so if you were the insurgency, if you were fighting the man, a foreign government that had invaded your territory, you always want to shoot for small, constantly stinging victories. Don't worry about the big wins. The small, constantly stinging victories where every time somebody goes out, somebody's buddy dies. Maybe 2 buddies die. Maybe 3 buddies. Maybe you don't all die. Maybe the whole group doesn't. But you want to take out, man after man after man on small, stinging engagements, time and time again. Okay. So I thought that was good. So number 18, there was also an interesting point about infiltrators coming up from the southern border and infiltrating industry and security positions and all those kinds of things. And I thought that was interesting, just relative to the political situation with Donald Trump and the border wall and all those kinds of things. So I thought that was kind of that's from 1984. All right, number 19 is, as a general rule, I thought their choices for ambush locations were pretty good. They controlled the situation and they kept the high ground in most cases, and that's awesome. That's what you want to do. So I thought that was pretty good for the most part. Number 20, playing football out in the open field. That was dangerous. You do have to relieve stress. You do have to have times of entertainment and all those kinds of things, but in a combat environment, it's not the place to do it, especially not out in an open field. Now, at least they had the girls on watch. But doing this out in the open field, that's really reckless. Okay, number 21. Laying in front of the tank when it fires. That will probably, without ear protection, is probably going to blow out both eardrums, and you're going to be completely deaf. And it was interesting how they showed the one kid that went ballistic, and he was just like, "I can't take it," and that's fairly realistic. That would probably happen because you can't describe the concussion that a tank gives off. It is wholly overwhelming. I'll just say that. Even when they're training rounds and stuff are boom, like wow. I mean, I had a chance to go down to the JRTC down in Louisiana at Fort Polk and watch some of their engagements and stuff like that close up, and it's powerful. Okay. All right. Number 22. Losing stomach for the battle after a group member dies. This is also a very, very real situation that you could have to deal with. And I thought it was a very kind of a poignant moment in the movie because that sense of defeat and loss and all that kind of stuff and dealing with that is also something that prepper groups may have to deal with in a real situation. And so learning about how to deal with grief, talking about grief and all that kind of thing, maybe reading a book on it or something along those lines would be a practical and realistic thing to do, I think. Having a psychologist or a therapist as a member of your group would be also good. Okay, number 23. We're almost to the end here. The collection of weapons and ammo and uniforms was also a great point, a great thing that they did, and that would be something that you would want to do. That afforded them, the opportunity to upgrade their weapons, get more ammo. As the progression went through the movie, they got better and better with that, and were able to be more effective, collect more munitions and explosives and all those kinds of things. And that was, I thought, a great point. You never want to walk away from, an ambush without collecting everything that you can. All right, number 24, dealing with betrayal. It's a very good plot point in the movie. Yeah. I may have mixed up. The point earlier when I. Sorry about that. When I talked about Jed killing the guy face to face, that guy was a Russian. And sorry. And this one is when they're dealing with the traitor. And so flip those two in your heads. I'm sure people are already writing comments because I got that mixed up. My bad. But no, dealing with betrayal is that's a hard thing. And so we already kind of covered that one. Okay. Number 25 is trying to take down an armored attack helo with an AK while shooting from the hip is not smart. So those aircraft are beasts. I've seen them fly in Afghanistan. Some old ones that there was a couple that they still had that were still functional from when the Russian army was there, and they're massive, man. They're big, and you're not gonna shoot them down with an AK, especially not from the hip. So I just thought that was kind of funny. It was kind of just that he was ready to die kind of thing, Whatever. Number 26. What happened to all the people that they gave guns to and set free when they attacked the re-education camp? Why hasn't there been a Red Dawn 2? I mean, all those dudes, they let them all free. That's like a perfect setup for Red Dawn 2, if you ask me. But they never did really address it. I was really disappointed in that. I thought that sucked. they should have at least had some guys come out to the group and add to their group and show the size of their group growing, you know. And that was one thing that they did better in Red Dawn, the newer version, I thought. But okay, number 27. Jed had terrible tactics when he shot the Russian colonel. You don't ever tell somebody you're about to shoot them. You just do it. They don't need to be looking at you either. Just kill them. And that's, you know, he paid for it. So I thought that was just another point. You know, just if you're gonna deal death, just deal it. Get it done. It doesn't have to be all this bravado and all that kind of stuff. But again, that's movies. So. All right, so those are my points. I hope you guys enjoyed them, and you know, go over to Eric, the Lord Humongous. Go over to his channel, check out his video. He should have released it right about the same time, and then go over to Che's channel, Prepper Logic, and check out his video as well. He probably released it on time, although I'm guessing maybe not. He's been late on a few of them. I was too, but I have been too, so whatever. It's fine. But anyway, yeah, check them out. See what you guys think. I think this is a great movie. I think it had an impact on me as a child. I would hazard to guess that it probably had an impact on other people as well. I would be curious to know, what your thoughts are on some of these points, and I would also be curious to know, what movies do you think are the best survival, prepping, kind of apocalyptic movies that are out there? Put those in the comments below, because I want to see if I've seen them all, because I like to watch them when I got time. And, you know, I don't want to miss out on anything. I've seen a lot of them, but maybe there's some out there that I haven't seen, so let me know in the comments. All right, guys, as always, I definitely appreciate it when you click the thumbs up button. I also appreciate it when you head over to realitysurvival.com and you sign up for our email list so that you get notified of our new posts. I've been trying to write a little bit more on the site and put up more articles, and also it's set up so that you can print the articles in a PDF format. You can include those into your emergency binder or whatever if it's something that you are interested in. And I also have all of my affiliates over on the right-hand side of the page. And if you click to those affiliates, you know, through those banners that I have up, that'll help support the channel. That'll give me a little bit of a percentage, and it doesn't cost you guys anything more. And so I just definitely really appreciate when you use those. So, let's see. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Don't forget to share with your friends on Facebook and Twitter. And don't forget to live 6 P's. Proper prior preparation prevents poor performance. Stay safe, guys.